Just because this property is a great bedding property doesn't mean you can't draw them in with a food plot of your own.
Okay, now let's go to the ultimate. Like, what would you say as a hunter, and say I have 2 kids and maybe a couple friends I take out, what would you recommend for a hunting? My house is going to be out and I'm going to live right there. How much ground would be the optimal for what I want to use it for?
Any budget. I mean, obviously we want to go way up there in acreage, but I think 200 acres, if you're at that 200 acre mark with water, with ag, with not only nice timber, but you have great bedding areas, I think that's about the ultimate acreage in my mind. I
would agree, because you put a house on that, and you're probably, this day and age, you could be looking at anywhere from $750,000 to $1 million, depending on the house, maybe even more. So, it's a nice little investment, but it's still at that level, right? Because you go higher in that, now you just eliminated a lot of buyers, right? You go into the $1.5, $2 million places, and there's not a lot of people that are cash.
Like less than 1% of the population. So that really cuts down on your buyer pool, which obviously for a seller that can mean a long time on the market, or you're just waiting for that one individual that can afford it. So yeah, 200 acres would be mine.
Okay, so that's the guy that really wants to invest right in properties and just continue to get his ultimate goal. Now we're going to talk about investment. Say I'm an investor, because land is going through the roof, right?
Yes.
So buy now, hold on for a couple of years. What kind of strategies can you give a person for buying and selling land?
Well, personally, I've done some land flipping, I guess you would call it, and investing. So what I look for is a large parcel with lots of different access points off of the road so that I can divide it, right? So, for example, I had like a 120-acre parcel that I was able to divide 3 different ways, along with a house on one. So the house was like 15, 20 acres, and then I parceled off the other 2. I was able to go from, let's say, $3,000 an acre to now I can sell it for $5,500 to $6,000 an acre without really having to do anything to the land, just by dividing it, right? So the smaller the parcel, typically the bigger the dollar per acre, right? And the bigger the buyer pool for those smaller parcels because of the dollar value. So that dollar value is less, you have more buyers, you're going to drive up that price, versus large parcels, that dollar per acre can go lower because less buyers, right?
Yep.
So I always tell buyers that are just looking for investing, and some that maybe don't want to, flip it, but they just want a long-term hold, then you're looking for, hey, I'm not a hunter, but I want to invest in it, or I might hunt once in a while. Hey, is there an outfitter that would lease it from me? Are there individuals, hunters that would lease it from me so I can get that, investment and cash flow from the hunter? And then you have, of course, the ag side of things, right? Or CRP. So I'm looking for those avenues to get my rate of return higher, right? But as far as, maybe cutting some parcels out, I definitely want to look for that road frontage, a bigger parcel that I can now shrink into smaller parcels so I can drive up that dollar per acre.
Which makes sense, right? Because if it's got the road frontage, you have easy access. You don't have to worry about any kind of, entryways, because it's all right there. You can add anything you want as long as it has that road frontage. And you know where my place is. I mean, we all have tamarack swamps, and it doesn't have any easements.
Right.
I mean, basically, we had a landlocked 40 that was neighbors that we could dictate who he sold it to, because we had the only way to get into it easy, and we ended up buying it. So you want to avoid those kind of situations.
Agreed. So road frontage is very important. Even if you're just buying an 80-acre parcel or 40-acre parcel, when you're dealing with easements, you're going through other people's land. Sometimes there's conflict, unfortunately. A walking easement is probably the worst case scenario, because it's not like the old days when we were trekking through those swamps. A lot of people want to take the four-wheeler back there. They want to take the UTV. They don't want to walk, right? So those factors can definitely lower the price of your acreage.
Yep. The other thing I always tell people is look for the areas, try to become familiar with the area that you're going into, right? I mean, because some areas are known for big deer, some deer, locations are not, or even in our area, it's kind of touristy in the summer, right? So you have a potential, if you want to do an Airbnb or any of that other stuff, you have potential if you're in some of these touristy areas or in a high, big buck area, it's going to be more valuable.
Absolutely. Yeah. And some people, like when I purchased my property here, I looked at what was around me and what my property could be, right? So, and then I made those improvements, and now it's getting exactly where I want to be, where there's big buck that are cruising through there now, not just the dreams of them, right? Yeah. So, but I also looked for, I had a property on there that I could rent out, so to help offset the cost of that property. So yes, when you're investing in that, look for, hey, there's a lot of water around me, there's a lot of lakes, a lot of people want to stay, maybe there's some big festivals, obviously you have your holiday weeks.
Yep.
You look for those so that when you do VRBO it or Airbnb it, you can make max dollar off of it.
Deer and Deer Hunting Properties is brought to you by Spy Point Trail Cameras.
It's going to be a perfect spot. Hey, Tim here from Analogics. Today we're setting up a brand new mineral site, and what I've done is I've kind of looked at the aerial of this property and found a spot that I can get in and out of pretty easily without spooking a lot of deer that would be bedded in the woods farther in. So there's a food plot within 50 yards of this location, so I can sneak in here, put the minerals in, and also check the camera and be out of here right quick. What I'm going to do with this spot is basically just clear away all the vegetation, both living and decaying, and I want to get to bare soil because the minerals are actually going to be consumed better if they're in the dirt. Whitetails actually do consume the dirt along with the minerals. It's a process called geophagy. It's basically eating soil. So we want to get the minerals mixed into the soil. We've got a perfect tree. We can put a trail camera here and monitor this area throughout the growing season. So let's get to work. What I'm doing is I'm basically just cutting all of this grass and roots and everything. I'm getting it right down to bare soil. This is just a regular garden hoe we're using here, so. I want to make sure that the deer can have access to this mineral without digging through the leaf litter and all that dead grass, the thatch. So I'm getting right down to bare soil. And I'm basically doing this in a circle. So what I want to get is about a 3-foot circle that I'm going to be pouring the mineral on. So when you think about like a campfire size circle, that's what we're after. All right, so now that we've got a good base cleared out, I'm going to pour about half of that mineral dirt 180 in this area, and I'm going to churn it into about the top 3 inches using the hoe. So there we've got about half the bag. We're going to churn that into the soil. So for this, I'm turning the hoe. So I'm digging in with the skinnier portion so I can get more of that topsoil up to the top. Now I'm going to even that out just a little bit. Get rid of some of these roots that I cut out. Okay, now we're going to pour the rest of the bag on top. We're going to mix in a little bit of that whiteout as well. Mineral Dirt 180 is a great granular mineral product just by itself. But in this instance, we're in a brand new mineral site. I want to give it a little bit of a cake topper. That's what this Black Ops whiteout is. It's more of an attractant than the pure mineral. And that's going to get the deer to quickly utilize this site and basically give them another reason to stop by and give us a good picture on the trail camera. So. That's pretty much it. All we need to do now is set up the trail camera, make sure we're in frame, watch the pictures roll in.
Coming up next on Deer and Deer Hunting Properties, Brad Rux takes a deep dive into the Moultrie Feed Hub and how it can elevate the deer herd on your property. Then we meet up with Dan Schmidt during the Nebraska gun opener for a hunt you don't want to miss. Stay tuned, you're watching Deer and Deer Hunting Properties. Deer and Deer Hunting Properties is brought to you by the all-new Feed Hub by Moultrie Mobile. Deer and Deer Hunting Properties is brought to you by DDH Outdoors.
This is the best thing to happen to feeders since corn. The all-new Moultrie Feed Hub. I'm using the 30-gallon feeder. This model is totally toolless. Probably takes you 15 minutes to put it together, another 5 minutes to download the app and program it, put the feed in, and you're ready to go. This feeder is the bomb. It does everything, and literally it's app-based. Not only can you program what times you want to do the feeding and the length of the time, but you can actually, it's got a sensor in here that monitors feed levels. So therefore, you know, if you were an out-of-state hunter, right, a non-resident, and you're running a feeder in Kansas, and you got a buddy checking on it, you can check it. You can see if it's feeding, and you'll know if that number's not constantly going down, right? Oh, it's clogged. I better call Rolf and have him fix it. You know, so it gives you that kind of information. You can also literally, just like your trail camera where you can set off a picture, you can set the feeder to go off. So you can test it yourself. It takes the worry about a feeder not performing totally out of the mix. You're gonna know when to fill it, what time to fill it, how much the deer activity is going to be there, and you can do that all on your phone. So here is the eye sensor that's going to go in your lid, and literally it's got a spot in the Moultrie feeders, but you can use the feeder hub on different style feeders as well. So therefore, if you already have a feeder and you want the hub, you just buy the hub unit. You buy the mobile part, right, as well. This is a sensor that goes in the top of your lid, and basically it's just looking down, and somehow it gauges literally the bottom of the feeder to the top, and it's going to tell you when the bottom's getting closer, and it's going to give you that level. Like I said earlier, it's going to let you know, if you don't see that number getting lower, like the feeder's almost empty, you know the feeder's jammed, and you're going to have to check on it physically. But if it's working properly, you're also going to know exactly when it's going to run out of feed. So any of the spin feeders need a harder feed type, right? So we're using the Golden Nuggets, which is specifically a high protein food source made for spinning cast feeders. You don't want to use your normal protein pellets because they're going to break up and basically disintegrate. But you can put corn, you can put soybeans, lots of anything that's harder, because what happens is that the spinner plate is spinning so fast, anything that's kind of breakable or not as hard is going to disintegrate when it gets thrown out, and then you're going to just have mush on the ground. Let's face it, deer like to eat bigger chunks of stuff, so corn, Golden Nuggets, whatever that is, that's what you're going to want to go with. Most feeders, you have select times that the feeder is going to go off. This gives you the ability to instant feed. So if I'm at my computer desk and there's deer there and I want them to stay a little bit longer because I'm monitoring a trail camera, I can just hit it and keep those bucks in that same area a little bit longer. The longer you can keep a whitetail in your area, the more likelihood he's going to stay in that property a long time. A lot of people only want to feed in the winter, but it doesn't hurt to put this feeder by your food plot year round, because what it's going to do, it's going to give that high protein source, and a deer's not going to camp over the feeder like they do in Texas. They're just going to come, nibble a little bit, take their bites, and then go out to the big ag fields or food plot. So it really doesn't hurt it, but definitely in the winter when there isn't food, you're going to want to be running feeders. It's going to give your deer a better, healthy herd throughout the entire winter, making them disease. You don't have to worry about starvation. Plus, when they go into that next year, building horns in March, April, they're already going to have a jump on their compadres that haven't had a feeder. So they're going to be ahead of the game, giving you bigger antler growth, more mature body mass, everything. It's the way to go if you're in a state where you can legally feed. It is one of the coolest products that I've seen in a long, long time. If you want more information on Moultrie's Feed Hub, Go to moultriefeeders.com.
Deer and Deer Hunting Properties is brought to you by Orion Hunting Products, America's #1 modular deer blind.
All right, it's our first sit here in Nebraska. This is going to be a good night, I believe. We just came in here. The bucks are rutting really hard. There's does coming into estrus, and it seems we've been watching this all morning. We got in late last night, had to sight in my rifle. I didn't want to go hunting without sighting my rifle. It's dead on. But these bucks are holding these does up in these various little wood lots. They're very small, just these little pockets of woods. And every now and then you're going to see a doe come squirting out of there and a buck's on her tail. It's cold, it's 30 degrees, but some really great action. And you don't get to experience this too many places in the country where you have running bucks and you have a rifle season. So we're feeling pretty confident about today. I can't believe I can see his antlers from here. He's that little. And he's not big. Yeah, I think that's a good buck. He's coming up to that barbed wire fence. I think that might be the buck we saw. Don't know if he goes the same way that other one went. See him? It looks like he's coming right to us though. Yeah, that's a big buck, David. Yeah, he's a good deer. That might be the deer we saw. Get this in position just in case. He's cutting that way though. I'd like to get him 100 yards closer. He's 200 yards right there. He's good. You got him? We got him. Stand. We've been in the stand, I think, less than an hour. We've been here for 1 hour. We're tagged out in Nebraska. This was really awesome. It's November 10th. Opening day of Nebraska gun season, and we've been seeing rutting activity all day. Now, we got in late last night. Our flight was canceled. We were snowed out in Minneapolis. We had to drive all the way. It was like 10 hours, and we got in late. And I do not like going hunting with a gun when I travel if I haven't been able to sight it after I fly. And we shot today. I had to adjust it a little bit. It put him down right on the spot. Yes. That's exactly what he was going to do. He was feeding there, and he was going to come up and scent check this. Oh, he's big. Look at him. What a body on him. Oh my gosh, look at the brow tines. Holy cow. Look at the neck on him. Oh, he's a beautiful buck. You can't script any of this.